Good morning, everyone. It is episode 6 of the Broker Breakdown with myself and James. Got hopefully some exciting conversations and topics lined up for us today with respect to current industry trends we've seen on the claims side of things. So we're excited to be back this week and discuss a few things that we've seen and want to share with our viewers here moving forward. So, James, how do you want to start this off?
Yeah, I think claims is never a fun topic. Obviously, you don't really want to be in a claims perspective, I would say, because that's you're obviously using your insurance. It's just, I feel like a lot of people think it's a very stressful time, but if you really kind of sit down and think about it, there's a lot that people kind of, I think, overthink almost. But that's why it's good to have a trustworthy broker, a trustworthy company that you can be with, to know that like when things like this do happen, obviously you're taken care of and you don't have to worry about it. But I do think a lot of people do stress over claims.
Yeah, you know what? There's a side of this that a lot of people don't know what to do in a claim, and I guess more specifically auto, right? Because there's the whole fault determination side of a claim. There's different types, right?
I think people use obviously the auto side more than homes because, again, unless it's like a catastrophic like windstorm, rainstorm that we have been seeing a lot recently, and especially from episode 5, if you live in like the Atlantic provinces, obviously with the hurricanes, you're probably going to use the home insurance for that. But I obviously do think people use the auto side more just with accidents and thefts and that kind of stuff. But I do think people obviously stress over it because they think it's like the end of the world. But again, that's why it is good to make sure that you are covered properly. You have that broker that basically can do all the work for you. And you're making sure that things are done properly. And, at the end of the day, if my car gets smashed up, I can just call James or Mike or whoever your broker might be, and it's going to get taken care of.
Yeah, exactly. And the one thing that I wanted to, I guess, to jump right into it too, one of the things that I guess is top of mind for some people right now and has been for a while, but maybe during COVID it wasn't always discussed. And this would be a place to start, and we can kind of go off from there, was that when car accidents happen and you have to submit that claim, one of the things obviously is depending on your policy coverages, there's a section for rental vehicle coverage, which helps provide a rental during the time it's kind of in the shop being repaired, or if it's being written off, whatever the case may be. The average policy for a long time was around $1,500, James, for car rental.
I've even seen people with like $800, which is like nowhere even close to what you need. Like not even close.
Yeah. And so we wanted to bring it up to everyone viewer-wise today to kind of maybe stress a few things.
And that being one of them.
Yeah. For one, the limit, right? A great spot to start off. The limit of what you should have on your vehicle depends two things. One of which, what type of vehicle did you have and do you want to continue, right? So for example, if you own and insure and drive a truck around and you need a truck day to day afterwards, the rental cost of that truck is going to be more than like, a compact sedan economy line type car. So I don't know overall rental car costs.
Rental car prices are insane. Like me and my girlfriend are going to Banff earlier or later this month, and like looking into rental cars, like even for like 5 days, like you're easily like $300 minimum. Like rental cars right now they're so low demand. And the rates are so high because they know that people need them, not even just from an insurance side, but like, for example, if you're going on a trip, you want to rent a car, right? So the demand is so high, but the quantity of rental cars out there, there's literally none.
Right. Yeah, right. And that's one of the things, right? In this current state of the marketplace right now, rental car companies can charge kind of whatever they want because people are still going to have to pay that, right? The supply and demand issues right now still affect even rental car market. So, if you have $100 a day car as, let's just say, a talking point, if your car is in the shop being repaired from a claim, if you have the average of, let's say, $1,500 just from a talking point, that gets you about 15 days max
Yeah,
worth of
if you're
car
in,
rental.
yeah, especially if you're in like a truck or like a SUV or something like that, like your minimum a day is probably upwards of like $75-$80 a day, probably.
Right,
And
right.
in today's marketplace, before COVID, I would say it was a little bit less than that, but in today's marketplace, on average for an SUV or a truck, you're right around that $75-$80, if not more, depending on what kind of vehicle it is.
Boom. So right there, I mean, bring that back to the insurance side. If that's what the cost is going to be and the insurance company is paying for it in the event of a claim, let's say you have that coverage, let's assume it's being paid for, that gets you 15 days. One of the first few episodes, James, I think we discussed just parts in general, like vehicle auto parts and the supply and demand on that, right? Like if they
which that's gotten worse, if anything, like that, like it's still a massive issue we're facing in the insurance world, and not even, I don't think just in the insurance world, but I think in the auto industry as in general, is that cars aren't being produced as how highly they were before COVID. Like replacement parts are not being produced at the rate that they were prior to COVID. So you're still seeing like these, if you get into an accident, like there's sometimes you are waiting 2 to 3 months for back ordered parts to come in for your vehicle. So without the right amount of rental car coverage, and a lot of people don't understand this, not just because you get into an accident doesn't mean that the insurance company is going to pay forever for you to be in that rental. You have a limit for it, so you got to make sure that your limit is going to be sufficient enough to cover you, especially for these things to happen. If you drive a higher end vehicle, I'm almost going to guarantee you're going to be waiting a lot longer for parts to come in because they're just not being produced at the rate they were prior to the pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, to any viewers that are listening that might not have that knowledge, basically the recommendation is insure. I would personally recommend anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000 as kind of a talking point. Some people might even want to do more. I know we've done a big push on, again, 25 to 300, not the 15 that was standard in the industry for the last probably 10 plus years. That just does not go far enough. That gets you maximum of about 2, maybe 3 weeks, depending on the type of vehicle you have. And with the claims taking longer and insurance companies being, I would say, understaffed. We won't get into the politics of that, but if an insurance company doesn't have the right,
that's another episode.
If the companies don't have enough staff to be able to utilize and do claims fast enough, that basically means that you're going to have a rental longer if your claims, taking a longer period of time. So, I mean, as a client, if it's going to cost you $30 extra a year on your insurance policy, so $2.5, $3 a month, but you get twice as much car rental coverage, that should be a no-brainer. That, in my personal opinion, but that's part of our episode today.
Yeah, no, like for when I'm helping clients, like my minimum is $2,500. There are companies that will jack that up even farther as their base. There's even a company out there that doesn't even do it by amount; they do it by days, actually. So I think their standard is 45 days, so basically a month and a half. But even sometimes that might not even be good enough, especially in the market that we're in now. But standard for me, like I will not offer less than 2,500, and it's just, I know how the market is right now. And on top of that, the minuscule increase in your premium to increase your rental car coverage is like next to nothing. Like we're talking like a few dollars a year. So why wouldn't you have more coverage, right? Especially in the market that we're in, that if you need to use this and you get into an accident, you want to make sure that you're in a rental car coverage. Because I'll tell you a personal story. When I got, was it 2 years now? I think it's been 2 years now. I got T-boned in my truck. And I had tons of rental car coverage. I think I had like $22,000 or $2,200 at the time where I was with my insurance company. And I'll tell you right off the bat, my claim took 3 months to pay out because of the truck and like the parts and stuff. And that was like just starting COVID. That was the year COVID started. So COVID was like March, and then this happened in September. So even in September, it took 3 months to fix my vehicle.
Right.
And I literally used all of my rental car coverage, and I actually had to pay I think it was like $1,000 out of pocket because I used all my rental car coverage because how long the claim took.
Yeah, and you know what? While you were saying that, I was thinking, because we were obviously talking about, parts and delays on vehicles that are being repaired. There's a flip side to that as well, which is if a vehicle is being or deemed a total loss or being basically a write-off, when you get a claims check, it still might take you a month or 2 months in order to find the next vehicle you want, because the used car market is so hot as well.
And that's another whole other conversation too. Like,
right? So I mean,
the
same
used car
thing.
market has never been hotter right now. Like, I don't know how it is now, but I knew like in the summertime, people were like driving their vehicle for like 3 to 5 years and basically getting what they paid for it 3 to 5 years prior. So they were getting more money for their car than than it's even worth.
Right.
Which is like insane to think.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, perfect example. Like, I mean, if you right now can't get the vehicle you want, or there's not an alternative vehicle that's, maybe similar to what you lost in a claim, it's even more important to have higher limits on rental, because it might take you an extra month to find that right vehicle. So, I mean, if you're, depending on how the claim goes and how you and your insurance company discuss it, again, why not just have the extra little bit of rental in order to provide you that time until you find the next one, right? That's part of that conversation.
Yeah. And like I said, the minuscule amount that you're basically going to increase your premium a year is like next to nothing. So there's really no point not to have it, because at the end of the day, I would rather spend an extra $30 a year on my insurance, and I would rather not spend the extra $1,000 I had to pay to the insurance company because I didn't have enough rental car coverage, even though at the time I did think it was enough. But again, you never think it's going to happen to you until it happens to you.
Yeah, and not to generalize, but it's always, unfortunately, the people that have gone through a specific scenario, right? So like a scenario like a rental, or the people that utilize accident benefits that really have seen the benefits. It's always the people that have had to submit a claim who have had either the right coverage or the wrong coverage that then say, wow, this might be needed, or I should have done that.
I should have done that prior to having this happen. But again, a lot of people don't. The world that we live in right now is a very reactive world. Like, we just react to things. And I don't want to say everyone does, because obviously there are a lot of people that are proactive. They have the right coverage right off the bat. But a lot of people, and including myself, are reactive. Like, we don't think it's going to happen to us, but when it does, we're like, man, like I really wish that like I took that extra coverage, or I bought that extra warranty. Like, we don't think of those things because we're like, you know what, like, let's save money now. But like I said, even for myself, if I would have increased my rental car coverage up to like $3,000, I wouldn't be paying the extra $1,000 out of pocket that I had to pay after my rental car coverage limit like ended.
Right. Well, and there's part of that equation where, let's say it is $500 to $1,000 out of pocket, and you're super pissed. I mean, that's arguably the next 30, 40, 50, a lot. When you think about how many years, right? $30 a year extra, give or take. I mean, 10 years is $300. So 20 years of having additional rental for that one mistake, in that sense, when you think about it.
Exactly. Yep.
Now, I know we don't really ever want to use insurance, and I get it. Everyone thinks it's a scam, and you don't want to have to utilize it, and your rates go up, blah, blah, blah. We've kind of heard all those conversations for sure. But at the end of the day,
we've heard everything in the book.
At the end of the day, I mean, we all do need it. We all require it. We all pay for it to drive around. It's a big pool. So the best thing you can do is kind of utilize us to educate.
Just make sure you have the right coverage. And if you're unsure, just ask. That's why it's good to have the right broker, a broker you trust, because I tell all my clients flat out, if you don't have the right kind of coverage, I'm going to give it to you, because I don't ever want to short sell my client, because I don't need them coming back to me and making me feel guilty that I didn't cover them properly. It's not about selling. It's about educating and cover your client properly, because me as a consumer, I can tell right off the bat when someone's trying to sell me something, when someone's trying to educate me something. They're two completely different conversations, even though they might be about the same topic. But right off the bat, if you're selling me something, I know right off the bat you are. But if you're trying to educate me, I'm like, okay, I want to listen to this person.
Yeah, exactly. No, education's huge, right? Which is part of the reason why we started this podcast in the first place.
Exactly.
The other thing I wanted to ask too, James, because I know we're on the claims thing here, is I know what I would do, but maybe the average person doesn't, right? So are there any tips, any pointers that you can suggest to people if they're involved in a claim of what their next step should be? And I don't want to highlight this on whether it's a comp or collision because that way, I know everything's different. But what are some of the things people can do?
I think going through it myself, I think staying calm is a big thing because you don't want to like wild yourself up more than you already are. Like you've been in an accident or whatever it might be, you're making a claim. You don't want to get more stressed out about something because again, if you have the right coverage, if you have the right broker, at the end of the day, you should have all the peace of mind in the world that this is going to get taken care of. So I would always say don't stress about it because at the end of the day, it should be taken care of as long as you have the right people behind you that are going to take care of it for you. Another big thing I learned too was always pay attention to like what kind of happened. Like always kind of keep it in your mind. Like, okay, I was going through this intersection. I was doing this. I was doing that to kind of like, because when you do the claims, like phone call or paperwork or whatever it might be, depending on the company that you're with, they're always going to ask you all these in-depth questions. And even like for myself, like I was like, oh, I have no idea. So I always say like kind of take a mental picture of like what is actually going on, and like your surroundings and stuff to make sure that you can basically give as much information as you possibly can, as clear as possible you can as well. So those are the two biggest things that I kind of learned from was making sure you're getting as much information you possibly can, but also staying calm because you don't need to stress yourself out more during a situation like this because it already can be stressful enough. So you don't need to overstress yourself in these kind of circumstances.
Totally. And the one thing I'll add too, just from thinking about it and kind of going through that process is always if there's another person involved, another party, regardless of who's at fault, I would always suggest getting maybe their license number, insurance info, phone number, stuff that you can get a hold of them. So it's not just like a kind of a good faith gesture, because I have you chat with people. James, I'm not sure if you had conversations like this, but I've chatted with new clients potentially, and it seems to be quite often, like at least once a month, where somebody has a claim on their Auto Plus, or so basically a claims report for those that don't know. But it could be from multiple years ago, and it's under the other losses section, where obviously the other person put in a claim against your client and said they hit them, but you never spoke to your insurance company. You never put anything in. You both kind of parted ways, as an example, right? You both said, we'll get it repaired ourselves. No worries. Okay, I'm glad we're not going to put this in, blah, blah, blah. And then, 5 years later, you're trying to move insurance companies and there's that other loss that, to your knowledge, comes up, right? And it does happen. It happens for sure.
It happens a lot.
I've seen
it. Yeah, it happens a lot.
To go back to, I guess, where my point was going from the beginning there, getting phone numbers, a phone number, a name, maybe a license number, insurance history, it gives you enough where you can give your agent or your broker a call following and make a note on the file that something has happened, but maybe you both have decided you don't want to put something in. At least giving us a call, we can advise of possible next steps, for one. For two, let you know how things might be affected, how they won't. And for three, it's documented, time, date, all that stuff that you do need to have. Because the reality is people could hit you. You both might not know how fault works or how the fault determination works. And then you don't do anything. You don't even call your insurance because you think there's going to be a concern. Afterwards, you find out that you're deemed at fault because you didn't give your broker a call and the other person did, and then said you were at fault. And that has happened as well. So yeah. I guess that was the big thing, right? Is always grab info, give us a shout, or give whoever you work with a shout, no matter what, and then kind of find out what any next steps might be, hypotheticals, things like that.
I think the biggest thing that I'm going to take away from that is how you were saying, like, fault a number of times. The biggest thing I want to tell clients, never, ever, ever listen to police officers. Police officers have zero authority when it comes to insurance. So if they're going to come to the scene and they're going to start saying who's at fault, you can never, ever listen to them, because insurance companies have to do their own inspection, investigation, all that kind of stuff. A cop showing up and straight up telling you you're not at fault, you're at fault, they're going to be 100% wrong unless it's like a clear cut accident. But never take what they're saying and being like, okay, this is how it's going to be. And then the insurance company kind of goes the other way with it. Because again, the insurance company has to do their own investigation. They have to do all their inspections and all that kind of stuff. So do not take what the police officers say to heart or anything like that, because 9 times out of 10, they don't deal with insurance. They don't deal with how they investigate stuff. They just want to come, make sure people are okay, get them off the road, that kind of stuff, right? So always make sure that you're calling your claims, your company that you're dealing with, their claims line, and dealing with them, and then hearing what they have to say first, because the last thing you want to do, because I don't get it very often, but I do get it sometimes when people are confused on how like the claim process works and stuff, and then the police will be like, oh, this is 100% your fault or 100% not your fault, and then when the claim actually gets investigated, it's like literally the complete opposite. So you don't ever want to get that idea in your mind that you're instantly not at fault or you're instantly at fault because what the police officers are saying. They are just there to basically make sure you're okay. They have to obviously make the report because it goes back to the MTO and all that kind of stuff, but they do not deal with the actual insurance side of things whatsoever.
And I'll make a quick distinction, and I'll provide an example as to like maybe what highlights that, James, so that people know. Because I think one of the common things, and I'll use a weather-related event. So let's say you slide off the road, a single vehicle accident, you and nobody else. You slide off the road, you go into a ditch in the wintertime, okay? Someone calls the cops just to make sure you're okay. They show up. They don't give you a ticket because obviously they're not charging with anything. It's a weather-related accident. There's 2 distinctions here I want to make. One of which, when they say, don't worry, nothing will go against you, what they're basically saying typically is they're not going to file a charge against you for careless driving or give you a ticket for whatever it might be, right? Following too closely, losing control, whatever the ticket might be. That's what they're addressing. That's what they're discussing with you at that scene. The other side of it is the insurance side. So if you slide off the road in a weather-related claim into a ditch and your insurance company pays the damages to your vehicle, that is still an at-fault claim for people that need to know. The cops are talking about charges with respect to tickets. They're not telling you that your insurance will not be affected. And I say this as an example because this is a prime example that I've heard almost weekly when someone says, oh, the cop showed up, all was good, there's nothing there.
Exactly, yeah. I wasn't charged. I wasn't charged.
That's the exact words. I wasn't charged. And that's fair. Charged,
so it shouldn't go against me, but it does. And
there's a distinction, right? The cops do the stuff with respect to tickets. They don't tell you how the fault determination is for an accident. Insurance companies do. So again, bring it back, call your broker, get advice that way. But I want to say that single vehicle accidents are still deemed as, quote, at fault accidents. If you're getting your vehicle repaired for 5, 10, 20 grand and your insurance company is paying out, I can promise you it is not deemed a non at fault accident, regardless of what your family, your friends, or the cops say. Let's just make that distinction right now.
Yeah, no, even in my circumstance, when I had my accident, obviously it was very clear cut. Like I was T-boned. There was nothing I could do, but the cop straight up was like, oh, you're not at fault for this. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to hear what the insurance company says. Obviously in the back of my head, because I work in the industry, I was like, okay, there's 0% chance I'm at fault for this. But still them saying that, like if they go to a more like gray area kind of accident and they would say it to me, I would have been like, no, like I want to see what the insurance company says first, because I don't want to take your word and then go to the insurance company, and the insurance company says what the opposite is. So, yeah, I would just say be very, very cautious about listening to what they have to say because, again, police officers do not have any authority on the insurance side. It's not like the report is going to obviously go back to the MTO, and like the insurance companies obviously use that, but the insurance companies also do their own investigation and inspections on things. So just because like police is saying one thing doesn't mean the insurance company is going to agree with them.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so furthermore, claims, because this has always been a good topic too. For those that do, or again, for those that probably do not know, claims go a couple of different ways. There's ones that are deemed at fault. There's ones that are not. The average client, I would suggest, doesn't necessarily know what affects their insurance and what doesn't. So I guess one thing we'll quickly chat about, James, is collision comp claims or comprehensive collision. Two terms that are thrown around almost daily with every single quote you do. Comp claims, for those that are unaware, or comprehensive claims, are your typical things that people have known for decades, your fire and theft coverage, but it also extends to much, much more, right? It's things like windshield claims, glass, flying object, deer, and the kind of list goes on. Those are typically not at fault claims, guys. Those are the ones you're not going to get penalized as a at fault claim. You'll pay a deductible, but you're not going to be, you could have a couple of those and your rates are not going to go up as a result, right? So I wanted to make that distinction.
Yeah, a lot of people, I think with the animal side of things, is they're like, "Oh, I hit an animal. Is that not going to impact my insurance?" 9 times out of 10, it won't. It really just depends on kind of the circumstances. Obviously, you swerve into the deer purposely to damage your vehicle. Obviously, that's going to be a problem. But like, if it just jumps out and you hit it, like, there's nothing you can do, right?
Quick point, because this people might do this as well, and it does happen from everyone. Your instinct is going to be to swerve to miss the deer. However,
swerving is the worst thing you can do, because the insurance company is going to be if you swerve and you get into an accident, the insurance company is almost going to guarantee is going to rate you as an at fault. It is
so I was going to say,
it is always better to just hit the animal, because if you hit the animal, the insurance company has no reason to base that at fault. But if you swerve and hit like a tree or go in the ditch, that is an at fault accident.
Right, and that's what I was going to say, is that is kind of morbid as that might sound. The instinct is to say to swerve to get out of the way, but if you say, "Hey, I missed the deer, but I hit the ditch," it's now looked at as that single vehicle collision claim.
Exactly.
It's not the comprehensive, because you actually left the roadway to swerve. And as much as that might sound weird, that is going to be the case the majority of the time, if not all. I just don't want to say all, because obviously we're not adjusters. No. But I would say probably 99 out of 100 times that's probably going to be the case.
Yeah. Disclaimer that we do not deal with the claims directly. There's obviously trained professionals, adjusters, the claim people that deal with all the claims. They always have to go through all their investigations. This is literally just coming from our expertise, being in the industry and kind of seeing patterns and stuff. So every claim is going to be different. So never take, I was in an accident 5 years ago and it's going to be the exact same thing. No. Every claim is different. Every claim is investigated. Every claim situation is different. So you always got to make sure that you're going into it with a clear mind, because you can't always say, "Well, I had a claim 5 years ago and this is how it was dealt with." Well, no, it's different based on the situation.
Yeah, for sure. There was another thing I was going to mention, which was it was the tips to the kind of the claims thing. And I know we kind of got off track there with a couple of different examples, which was good. It was still good. I forget exactly what I was going to say. It was more related to like what you should do when you're involved in an accident. I mean, I would always suggest if you work with a broker that is kind of that middleman and has the client's best interest at heart, I would typically recommend giving them a call regardless, whether it's the same day or the next day, so we can run through the hypotheticals with you. I've heard of a couple. Yeah, go ahead, James.
Always call like within like a 72-hour mark, because you always want to have that information fresh on your mind, because you don't want to wait like a week or two and then be like, "Oh, you know what? I don't remember what actually happened there." You want it kind of fresh on mind, so you can like tell your broker or agent or whoever you're dealing with as clear and as accurate information as possible.
Yeah. And actually, I do remember what I was going to say. Basically, one of the distinctions, I think, as an advantage to our channel, James, and you can add in after here, when we as brokers have claims, we can tell you kind of what may or may not happen when you give us that call, because we're not we're independents, right? Brokers kind of are independent in the kind of middlemen there. We don't work for the insurance company. So one of the benefits is we can discuss how a claim might end up, deductibles, things like that, before it's actually submitted. So we can give you some advice and some heads up versus calling the insurance company directly, where obviously you're going to have that guaranteed, you called us for a claim.
Yeah,
well, and you gave us a call. We now know there's damage, which means we have to submit a claim on your behalf regardless, because now we work for the insurance company, right? So there's that whole side of it.
Yeah. Another thing I really want to point out too is minor accidents, get off the road, because all you're doing is you're causing, one, a disruption to traffic, and two, you're putting more harm and more danger to you, because if you can drive the vehicle to the shoulder, off the road, into a parking lot, that kind of stuff, you're way more safe in a parking lot than you are on the side of the road, because it only takes one person not paying attention, they're drifting a little bit into another lane, and they rear end you, or they hit you, not even the car, they might hit the pedestrian. So I always say, if it's a minor accident, don't just sit in traffic and make a big scene. Go off to the side, get in a parking lot, get somewhere where you're more safe and you can deal with the claim instead of sitting in the road. Because now, I understand that it's stressful. I fully understand. But the last thing you want to do is sit in traffic, disrupt traffic even more than it already is. And on top of that, put yourself in more danger, because, again, if someone's not paying attention, they're not anticipating someone being stopped, and they come up and they hit you, they hit your vehicle, there's just more damage that you don't need to happen.
Yeah. I mean, definitely I think it depends on the severity, right? Depending on how much damage there is, and
100%.
Maybe there are. I'm going to make a quick note of something, because I remembered something else I wanted to quickly chat about. But depending on the severity of the damage, for one, but also if there is any possibility that there's a he said, she said for fault determination. Okay, so being sideswiped as an example. You might want to have your vehicle in a place where it can show how the vehicle came across or hit you, so it provides more proof that helps with the insurance company's settlement.
100%. It's all going to be situational, but again, if it's a minor thing, just get off the road, put yourself in a more safe position so that more damage and more injury isn't causing. Again, if it's a massive accident, you can't move the vehicle, understandable. If you're injured, obviously can't move the vehicle. For my situation, when I was hit and T-boned, my truck was absolutely totaled. It was destroyed, but it was still drivable, where I could basically get it off the road into the parking lot that was right there. So traffic was literally not even impacted by my accident whatsoever. But again, I know it's a very stressful situation. You've just been hit, whatever it is. But like I said, if it is possible, get to a more safe area and then conduct the claim process. Talk to who you hit, make sure they're okay, make sure you're okay, get as much information as you possibly can, and then make that claim call as soon as possible. Like I said, usually 72 hours, because then all the information is fresh in your mind. The longer you wait, the more things you're going to forget.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing that I've been thinking about very recently that could have an impact on the claim settlement and or any fault and basically help your position. It doesn't have a lot with respect to, if anything, discount-wise yet, but I have seen them a lot on YouTube, and people have obviously done it. James, you've probably seen stuff too, is just general dash cams nowadays.
Oh, dash cams are so important. Honestly, I don't have one. I've been wanting to get one for a while, but dash cams, if you don't have one, I would really recommend you look into it, because you can get some for under $100, and these dash cams can save you from so much grief. Especially, again, in the world that we live in, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that try to scam the system, and a lot of what we're seeing is people for example, you had a red light and someone goes in reverse and hits you, and then say you rear-ended them, right? Without a dash cam,
right?
How are you going to prove that you didn't rear-end them, right? But with a dash cam, you can clearly see that they've backed up, hit you, and then took off or try to blame you, right? So such an important piece if you don't have it. I know it's an extra cost to you, but again, down the road, it could really save you a lot of money and a lot of grief to not have one.
Totally. Yeah. There was two specific things I thought about too while thinking about this topic. One of which is stuff flying off the back of vehicles, like flying object, whether it's stuff off another vehicle hitting yours, or even rock chips, or a person in front of you with no one else in front of them brake checking hard. And I know that, from an insurance industry perspective, it's our job to be defensive, right? And you want to be back from cars, whatever a fair thing is, because if you rear end someone, there's a very high probability you're at fault. But with that being said, if someone pulls it in front of you and then there was no opportunity to stop, and then you hit them, but it's because of their negligence, maybe that dash cam saves you, and the insurance company can go to the other insurance company and say, hey, your client basically started an accident, blah, blah, blah. It's just those types of things that could help. We're not saying yet that does help everything, but it basically helps state your case a lot better. Right.
Yeah, it's video proof. It's recorded. It's right there. I find a lot too, what a lot of people kind of miss on it too, the opportunities, is the pedestrian side. Because I find a lot of pedestrians feel like they have like the entitlement to like walk in front of vehicles or whatever it might be. And unfortunately, a lot of insurance companies, they just base, if you hit a pedestrian, instantly you're at fault. But with a dash cam, if you can see this person's being silly and like walks in front or like walks on a red light and you hit them, there's now video evidence that they were probably doing what they shouldn't have been doing. And it just, again, it helps your cause, because again, a lot of pedestrian claims, you're 99% going to lose if you're the car and there's no proof, there's no witnesses, there's no nothing.
Right. Yeah, it's pedestrian stuff's a whole other conversation for sure. But yeah, I just wanted to point out, dash cams can help. There's very little discounts, if none, that I'm aware of right now with the multiple insurance companies we deal with. I'm not to say that's not going to happen, because I would love to see a small amounts for safety and whatnot, because I might help adjudicate claims for sure.
Yeah, I don't think there's I don't think there's any discounts, but I think the market will there is an opportunity in the market for companies to kind of offer something like that. Again, if there is something that we're missing, we work with a number of companies, but off the top of my head, I can't think of any company that offers a discount for dash cams.
The one thing that I've actually had the pleasure of seeing a couple times now, and it's actually helped in the claims, and it's obviously more specific. This is no plug towards the company, but I think it's called the Sentry mode with Teslas, James, where like it's got all the cameras on it, right? That automatically record when stuff's hit.
Yeah, Tesla.
And the one thing that I've noticed was just super cool. I remember getting a client email me some damage from his vehicle there a few years back, and at the time it was like one of the first ones I'd ever seen, and it was a guy that clearly had come by and sideswiped his car. But because of where the cameras are positioned and the way they're able to get stuff, it was a hit and run. And the guy drove off, but it picked up the license plate from just the cameras on the Tesla.
Yeah,
and it was super cool. He was able to basically, with no witnesses at all, bring that to the police. They were able to find the guy, charge him. He obviously charged the guy just because, why would you not? Somebody hit and run. In most cases, those people are never found. But it was cool to see that in action.
Yeah, I think you'll start seeing a lot of car manufacturers go that route, especially with Tesla already doing it. I think a lot of other companies will start doing that, because I think like security is a big thing. A lot of people, you spend all this money on a vehicle and you want to make sure like things aren't happening to it. So like putting that kind of security in vehicles are like, you already have like the backup cams, all this other kind of stuff. So what's the hurt and what's like the extra cost to add in these kind of cameras and stuff that kind of make sure that your property is being protected, right? Because again, if you don't have those things, a dash cam or a rear dash cam or whatever, like they're like $100, right? But still, like if it's built into the vehicle, like what's the extra cost on manufacturing parts like that, right?
Yeah, right. Well, and it's for a lot of people out there, it's peace of mind, right? A lot of people already have them or have had them for a while, for the fact that, even if they're driving and they see something, the dash cam picks up, right? You'll hear the people say, hey, Garmin, clip that or whatever it might be, right? And you can actually see videos about damage or accidents in front of them. It's kind of just, it's more to bring things to light, if anything.
Yeah, I know the new iPhone that they released too. They have, and I know other phones have it too, but they have now like crash detection. So basically, like if you're in an accident, the phone will basically automatically detect that you've been in an accident and will call 911 right away for you.
Right.
So
Very cool.
We've seen technology kind of get to the point where now it's like it's helping people because again, you can be in an accident and get like knocked out or whatever, and you're unconscious and you can't call the police. And like that, being able to call the police right away is a huge thing for some people, right? You rolled over, whatever it might be, you just can't reach your phone. And then the phone automatically detects that you've been in an accident and will call like emergency services for you right away.
Right. Yeah. I just want to be cognizant of our time here as well. Anything else too, James? Because we're getting close to that 45-minute mark here. Anything else that you wanted to highlight for people today?
No, I think just kind of wrapping things up, just making sure you're just staying calm, making sure you're not over stressing about claims, because I know claims can be a very stressful time. But again, if you're with the right broker, the right company, you should have the peace of mind knowing that if something happens, they're going to take care of you. That's what we're here to do as a broker. I'm here to go to bat for you. I'm here to fight for you. So if things need to go pushed up farther or whatever it might be, that's what I'm here to do. Just making sure you're taking as much information as possible and making sure you're making the claim as soon as you possibly can. Because again, if it's fresh on your mind, you're going to give more clear, more accurate, more information in general than if you wait a week or two and then try to make a claim and be like, oh, you know what? I don't even remember what I did yesterday. How am I going to remember a claim from 2 weeks ago?
Right.
So I think those are the biggest things. Just reviewing your policy in general is the biggest thing too, because again, you don't ever want to get into a claim situation either on the home or auto side and then be like, you know what, I don't have coverage for that. And then having basically as a broker, either telling them, you know what, we had this conversation and you declined it, or you know what, it's on me. I actually didn't have that conversation with you. You don't have coverage for it. There's nothing we can do for you.
Yeah. What I was going to mention too, is there's two things. One of which, when renewals come up, is a great time to have that conversation. I usually do it, but it's also good just as a client perspective to kind of make sure you have reasonable stuff. There's usually deductibles you can look at, limits. Usually I'll make recommendations about things that are changing in industry and claims trends, so you have an idea about what's important. The other side point I was going to make, if there are accidents where there's a couple people involved and you don't know about how the fault's going to be, or whether or not you want to put something in, going to the collision reporting center and wherever you live, and kind of having one of those reports done up and at least passed along to us is super helpful, because it's basically said you've done your due diligence in
make sure you're always going reporting, because there's a lot of like areas too, like especially in Ontario, if you don't report damage, police actually can pull you over for that, because then they can be like, oh, were you in an accident, and question you. So as long as you go to the collision center and you get like that little sticker that they put on the damage, it shows that you've reported it, because again, police officers do have the authority to pull you over if they think that you've been in an accident and you haven't reported it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that about wraps it up for episode 6.
Yeah, I think this has been a very educational episode, obviously, because like I said, I think claims are a very stressful time for people, and people kind of go, oh my God, like what am I supposed to do, right? And like they kind of get like their brain goes 1,000 different ways, right? So it's nice to kind of just like be like, you know what, this is what you should be doing. This is what you should have coverage wise, and making sure that you're just taking everything in, giving as much clear and quality information as you possibly can to whoever you're dealing with. And just, again, peace of mind. If you're dealing with the right people and the right company, you should always have the peace of mind that things are going to get taken care of no matter what the circumstances are.
Exactly. That's a great way to end it too. That's a great way to end it, so people kind of have that top of mind.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, we obviously want to thank everyone for listening. This has been episode 6. We are probably going to have this looked at and uploaded for next Wednesday.
Yeah, the 11th. And then also look out for So this will go out the 11th, and then next week we are actually recording with, again, David Holton of Holton Mortgages. So he's going to come on for October 18th. That's his episode, and he's going to talk more about mortgages, the rising rates on mortgages, and kind of more deal with the home side of things, especially how it kind of translates into insurance. So make sure you follow next week's episode and the week after, because that will be our first actual special guest on the show.
Exactly. So for now, we thank everyone for listening. We'll tune in next week and hopefully have you guys back on board, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Yes, thank you for listening, and have a good rest of your guys' week.